It's time for the most interactive radio program in Las Vegas today. It's time for Pushing the Limits with Brian Shapiro. Brian will talk sports, politics, entertainment, and anything that matters to you. Feel free to call Brian at 702-221-7283.
You want answers? I want the truth!
Now, Pushing the Limits, here's Brian Shapiro.
All right, what's up, everybody? Happy Friday. We made it to Friday. That's right. It's a little chilly outside, but that's okay. You know, I came to the desert so that I could wear short sleeve shirts and shorts and sandals, but unfortunately, I walk outside today and it feels like I'm back east, man. I don't know what the hell is going on. But anyway, welcome to the show, everybody. Glad you could join us on this Basketball Friday. Man, we got so many basketball games in town. So much fun yesterday. I had so much fun. We'll get to that. A lot to get to today. Colin Kaepernick, yes, he's back in the news, ladies and gentlemen, not because he's putting on an NFL uniform and he's joining a team, but he made some interesting comments about his adopted parents. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the latest, believe it or not, the cartel is apologizing, like that means anything. This horrible situation where these 4 Americans were terrorized and 2 of them were killed. What a horrible story out of Mexico. So we're going to talk about that. Donald Trump, yes, he's back in the news. I know people are shocked to hear that, but there's a case where a woman is alleging that he raped her, and now I guess the footage of him bragging about sexual assault has been admissible in a courtroom. Also, prosecutors are signaling that Donald Trump will most likely be indicted in the Stormy Daniels case. So we're going to get to that and talk about Tucker Carlson. And man, we got so much to talk about. What better person to do that than, of course, my friend Michelle Mortensen, the 8-time Emmy winner, is joining us in studio today on a Friday. Michelle, it is good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm good. Glad to see you. Glad to be here too. Tired of this weather, just like you. We live in Las Vegas for a reason, and this has been, I think, one of the coldest, weirdest winters we've had in a long time. But we shouldn't complain because we need the rain.
True.
So I feel somewhat like a jerk for being mad that it rained all of February. It snowed 3 times.
That's true.
But I am ready for it to be over.
So am I. Kind of like the weather today, only it's not raining. This is like Seattle every day. It's horrible. It's terrible.
And it rained earlier today. It rained over by my house earlier this morning. I don't know if it did by you.
No, it didn't rain, but it's just cold and windy and crappy.
The wind, I'm over the wind.
The weather, I'm kind of over it.
Yeah.
You know what else I'm over with, Michelle? Tucker Carlson.
You've been over him for a while though.
Yeah,
that's not new.
But you're not a Tucker Carlson fan either. Though, right?
I'm not his biggest cheerleader.
No.
No.
All right, so let me ask you this. I'm going to give some Republicans some credit. Believe it or not, Michelle. People are like, what? What? Yeah, I am. Because a lot of Republicans, not all of them, but a lot of Republicans, including a bunch of Republican senators and people that were there on January 6th, a lot of Republicans are calling out McCarthy for, number one, handing over the tapes to Tucker Carlson. Number 2, they're criticizing Tucker Carlson for basically characterizing what took place on January 6th as some sort of tourist visit, because that's what Tucker Carlson is doing. He's been downplaying it the last several days. And the point that many people are making, which I think is a valid point, including some Republicans, are that you could take World War III footage and nitpick it and cherry pick it and make it as if it was a peaceful war. You can take a shooting and nitpick it and make it as it was peaceful. You could take what happened to Terry Nichols in Memphis and cherry pick some of that video and make it like it was peaceful and officers didn't do anything wrong. And that's exactly what Tucker Carlson has done here. He's taken little itty bitty pieces of footage and he's nitpicked it and cherry picked it and made it like there was no violence on January 6th. And I think that's why, including Mitch McConnell, I know you're not a Mitch McConnell fan, but some prominent Republicans that were actually there on January 6th.
Well, let's clarify one thing. You say I'm not a fan. You say that as if I dislike them or I don't. Just because I don't always like some things that they do doesn't mean that I'm adamantly against them or I'm opposed to them.
Okay,
I don't have issues with Mitch McConnell. Do I think that sometimes he's maybe past his prime? But he's in the hospital right now with a concussion. I don't have hatred towards Mitch McConnell, so I don't want it to sound like I'm.
No, I understand. but Mitch McConnell, the reason why I bring him up is because he came out and did a press conference and said it was a mistake for Kevin McCarthy to hand over the footage to Tucker Carlson because of what Tucker Carlson did with the footage, which we all knew he was going to do. McConnell was very outspoken about that. And a lot of prominent, not all of them, of course, but a lot of prominent Republicans, especially senators that were there on January 6th, were offended by the way Tucker Carlson has before and has now portrayed what took place on January 6th.
So I think a lot of Republicans have a belief system, and I am actually one of these Republicans as well, that Republicans always need to be above board and to do more and to do better than our Democrat counterparts would ever do, which would be in cases like, oh, we're going to give something to the media. We're going to give it to all media. We're not going to cherry pick and just give it to Fox News per se. And the reason I say that is because, for example, usually the president gives an interview to whatever network hosts the Super Bowl, right? Well, this year, Biden refused to do an interview with Fox News because it's Fox News. Sometimes partisan politics comes into play and politicians say, oh, I'm not going to play with this network because they're not favorable towards me. I believe that Republicans should always be favorable. Well, it should always play with all networks, right? And so I'm one of the Republicans who say, hey, if you're going to release the footage, release it to everybody. Don't just release it to Fox. Although as a former journalist, I know that you can release it to one organization or one journalist if you want to. It's freedom of choice. I think it's better when you are above board and you give it to all. It probably would have been better had you given it to all. McCarthy chose to only give it to Tucker. Don't know why, but that's what he did.
Mm-hmm.
And, Tucker did exactly what we all expected him to do.
Let me ask you, do you really, when you say McCarthy gave it to Tucker and you don't know why, do you really not know why? Because
I don't. I am curious if this was part of a deal.
Absolutely.
That was made with,
absolutely. No question.
Why can't I? Jim Jordan and
Yes.
the like in the, I wonder if it was part of a deal.
No question.
My guess is it probably was,
Mhm.
but I don't know. I wasn't a fly on the wall.
At a minimum,
I don't know the deal.
So we don't know for sure,
Nope,
but
no,
I
no,
think
no.
I think it's pretty reasonable for people to believe that, number one. And number two,
Reasonable to believe doesn't mean that it's true though. So it is
well,
just an
it's
assumption.
one or the other. It's either, or maybe both. It's either that happened, which I believe it did, or it's just McCarthy playing to his base, knowing that if he gives this footage to Tucker Carlson, it's not going to put any blame on Donald Trump. It's going to downplay what took place on January 6th, and that's what McCarthy wants.
I don't believe it did anything to help the base, though. And this is where it's somewhat perplexing to me and why you needed to release it at all. Everyone's opinions on January 6th are solidified. No one's opinion on January 6th is going to change. No one's opinion is going to morph.
At this
Now,
point, probably not.
In 20 years, 30 years, 40 years from now, opinions very well may change. But in this decade, in the 2020s, there will not be a changing of the opinions.
Yeah.
They are set in stone. So honestly, by releasing the tapes, it's done nothing but prolong the story and keep the story alive here in 2023. In my opinion, that does more damage to Republicans than it does help Republicans. So I think it was actually a negative to do it rather than a positive. That's my personal
Well, I
opinion,
definitely agree.
It keeps the story alive. And I think there's a lot of us who are just like, let it be done. My God, why are we still talking about 2020?
Well, I agree. I think I agree with you. I don't think it helped Republicans at all. And I think the more and more people talk about January 6th, the more it's bad for Republicans, not good. By the way, for the record, I do have some people saying, where's Michelle? So you got to send me a guest invite on TikTok.
Oh, okay.
People want to see your face. They don't want to see my face.
I don't think anybody on TikTok really wants to see my face.
They don't want to see my face for sure. I have a face for radio. I don't think you do, but I do. That's for sure. But anyway, we're talking about, of course, Kevin McCarthy handing over video footage to Tucker Carlson. Now, this happened several days ago, but the reason why we're still talking about it is because there are a lot of Republicans out there that are calling out Tucker Carlson. Why? Because many of the people that were there on January 6th, many of them Republicans. They know exactly what happened on that day. Not everybody was violent, but there was plenty of violence that day. They know that. They know that people were injured that day. They know that serious crimes were committed that day. And unfortunately, there are still a group of people within the Republican Party and people on the far right that are not willing to admit what that day was about. It was about an attempt to overthrow our democracy. It was a coup. It was an attempt to overthrow our democracy. Over 140 officers were injured that day. People died. And it was a very tragic day. And, Kevin McCarthy himself, hours after January 6th, said he put some of the responsibility on Donald Trump. There were some Republicans that were very outspoken that day, but since then have totally changed their tune for only political purposes and political reasons. And that's really sad. And that's unfortunate. And, there are people out there that are going to say that, well, Brian, you're lying. And I say, okay, well, what am I lying about? The evidence speaks for itself. There's video footage of police officers being beaten, sprayed with bear spray. There are video of officers being beaten with their own batons and crushed. There's tons of video footage of this stuff. It's all out there. And by the way, the proof is in the pudding when it comes to our court systems, because over 1,000 people now have been convicted of crimes associated with the January 6th insurrection. There are no lies there. Those are what we call facts. Antifa was not involved. Democrats were not involved. Nobody was set up. There were no actors there. There were probably hundreds of thousands of people that showed up there to listen to Donald Trump speak. And while I disagree with their political opinions, they had the right to be there. And there were a little over 1,000 people that committed crimes that day. And it was a very sad day for our country. It was a sad day for democracy. And now we are in the place where people are still attempting to downplay what took place on January 6th. Tucker Carlson and what he does is dangerous. And for those of you that listen to Tucker Carlson, and for those of you that are fans of Tucker Carlson, and for those of you that think you get the truth from Fox News, or in this case, Tucker Carlson, I point you out to Tucker Carlson's own executives and bosses who in court documents said that Tucker Carlson should not be taken seriously and that it's just purely entertainment. Those are what his bosses said. And this also comes at a time with the guy who runs Fox News, Mr. Murdoch, in court documents, openly admitted that a lot of the lies in regards to 2020 and the election were exactly what they were. They were lies. That's what they were. And I don't know. I just get extremely frustrated with some people out there that, I'm getting some feedback here. What's going on? There we go. I get a little frustrated with people out there that still believe that January 6th was nothing more than a tourist visit. Michelle, I don't know how you feel about that, but and I know we're still talking about January 6th, and we're still talking about it, Michelle, because of Tucker Carlson, because of McCarthy handing over the tapes to Tucker Carlson. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking about January 6th today. And you're right. That's not good for Republicans.
Yeah, I was listening to, I was listening to a TikTok of Joe Rogan talking about January 6th. And I felt that he encapsulated what I thought quite well. Most people, I think, watching January 6th were pretty appalled by what was happening on January 6th. I think most people thought storming the Capitol or going into the Capitol when you did not belong there, what was a bad thing. I don't think anybody was happy about that. And I sent you that. I can't remember if I sent you the New York Times article or whatever article it was, but there's these text messages that have been released that also show, Tucker Carlson expressing his disgust or displeasure or frustration for Donald Trump at that time as well. And one of the things that I think, if you can think about being in that moment, if you can go back in time, January 6, 2020, I'm not surprised that people like Tucker Carlson were texting things saying like, oh, we're going to finally get rid of this guy. Because over those 2-3 months, he was becoming a problem. There are times where Donald Trump is problematic and he does things that you go, oh my God, I just need this guy to shut up. I remember after the whole, grab him by the pee thing, I said something in a tweet where I was like, he just needs to shut up. And people were so furious with me. People didn't want to vote for me because I, would dare say something about the king and that I would dare tell him to shut up. But it was truthful in the fact that he just needs to keep his mouth shut sometimes.
He's not capable, what I mean? But he's not capable.
That very well may be true. But I think that at the end of the day, on January 6th, people were frustrated. And I was one of those people who was frustrated on January 6th because I knew, constitutionally speaking, from a factually constitutional standpoint, we could not overturn this election. And it was frustrating to think that some of my fellow Republicans thought that they could. It was very frustrating. I think we were all very frustrated with that. I was disappointed more than anything that Joe Biden won. I'm disappointed that Democrats are in control right now. I'm disappointed that Democrats act the way that they do every single day. I wish Republicans were in power and control now more than anything. Trust me. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to go and overthrow the government or overthrow the Constitution or do things that are illegal or wrong. Just because you dislike an outcome doesn't mean that you get to have bad or illegal behavior. And so.
But that bad or illegal behavior is happening everywhere. I mean, Michael McDonald's phone was taken away here locally. He won't even answer a basic question. Was he a part of the fake electorate scheme? He pled the fifth. I think we know what that means. People across the country. So, yeah, I mean, this was all over the country. And I might disagree with you on Republicans and Democrats today. I don't want Republicans running this country, but that's a different conversation.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I look at these polls, Michelle. 6 out of 10 Republicans still think that Donald Trump won the 2020 election. They're not living in reality, and you're not going to win elections moving forward if you keep thinking like that. The Kerry Lakes of the world, you keep thinking like that in those terms, you're not going to get anywhere. I mean, that's let me open up the phone lines. What do you guys think about that? I think Michelle makes a very good point, actually, which is Kevin McCarthy handing over these tapes to Tucker Carlson does not help the Republican Party. In fact, I think it hurts the Republican Party because it keeps the January 6th story going. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, all these networks, national networks and talk shows continue to talk about January 6th and, whether it be facts or mistruths. What do you think about that? Do you agree with Michelle? Do you think that Kevin McCarthy handing over tapes to Tucker Carlson helps or hurts the Republican Party? And maybe you're one of those people that believes Tucker Carlson. I don't know. I'm going to open up the phone lines right now if you want to be a part of the conversation. That number is 702-221-7283. Again, that number, if you want to call in, 702-221-SAVE. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Imagine, Michelle, you're a family member of a victim of January 6th, whether it be a officer that day or a politician maybe that was in fear of their life, which I believe many of those politicians were, and I don't blame them for that. And then you have to deal with people like Tucker Carlson and those that follow Tucker Carlson, basically making it out to be some sort of tourist visit. I mean, I'd be pretty offended by that. I wasn't there. I wasn't hurt. We all saw what happened on tape, but there are just many people out there that do not live in reality. If you think January 6th was nothing more than a tourist visit, you could call us, 702-221-7283. Again, that number, 221-7283. Go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, well, I don't have anything to add. I mean, I don't think that's as strong of a point personally, but things are on the news all the time and people are talking about things all the time that aren't necessarily that, if you're a victim, you're frustrated by that. That's fine. That's neither here nor there. The issue is that I just don't think we need to continually beat this dead horse. I think it's time to move on from January 6th. And I think it's time to talk about the issues that matter at hand. And the truth of the matter is Democrats lie about things about January 6th all the time. In fact, our own Attorney General Merrick Garland just recently lied about January 6th, where he said that several officers were killed on January 6th. That is not true at all. He was trying to allude that suicides that happened from officers after the fact were attributable to deaths being related to January 6th. That's not true. You cannot attribute suicides after January 6th to being murders that happened on January 6th, officers dying as a result of January 6th. Listen, the left and the right are abusing January 6th at all times. It just needs to stop, and we need to move on to the issues that are happening today, the issues that are at hand right now, and this upcoming 2024 election. We need to quit talking about the one that happened 2.5 years ago.
Well, going back to what you said earlier, Brian Sitnick died the following day.
Brian Sitnick is the one who was injured in.
Yes.
If he said there was one, that would have been fine.
Sure.
I believe the direct quote was that Merrick Garland said there were like 5 or 6.
Here's why. Several officers committed suicide.
But that was not a result of January 6th. Those are not murders. Those are suicides.
Right. But it's still a result. And family members of those victims have come forward. And I'm going to listen to them and what they have said, several of those family members of different officers on the record, by the way, that after January 6th, they changed, that they went into deep depressions. to me, I'm going to listen to those families and believe them when they make those statements. And I don't think they have a reason to lie. So, yes, I do believe those officers, sadly, some of those officers that took their own lives, it was correlated to what took place on January 6th. And I'm going to listen to those families. But regardless, even if you don't believe them, I don't know why anybody wouldn't, but even if you don't believe the family, what took place that day was an embarrassment to this country. People were injured. People did die. And it should never happen again. And it shouldn't be a political issue. And this is
but both sides have made it a very political issue. And that's the point. It is politicized to death. And we are politicizing it every single day. And that's what I think needs to stop. It's time to move on.
Give me an example of how you think the Democrats have politicized January 6th.
Oh my God, they politicize it every single day. I mean, number one, they act like every Republican on earth was there. They act like every Republican on earth agreed with it. They just like how Merrick Garland said that there were all these officers who died as a result of it when no officers were killed on the day of January 6th. It is politicized all the time. It has been used as a political tool to villainize Republicans every single day since it happened.
Well, I would just ask, like, what Democrat has said that every Republican thinks that January 6th was good?
Our own president has gone and vilified Republicans numerous times. And he always goes, oh, they're MAGA Republicans. And I'm not talking about all Republicans. I'm talking about MAGA Republicans. But he truly cannot differentiate the two.
Well, I think he has. He said there are good Republicans out there, and he's not talking.
I think the only good Republican he thinks of is Mitt Romney.
Well, that's not what he said. He said there are good Republicans out there.
I don't think he can name one.
Well, I mean, I'm just going by what
he'll
he said.
Probably say Mitt Romney and Cheney.
I'm just being very careful and being factual and not making generalizations.
But I'm saying he's never named one.
Well, he doesn't have to name one.
If he could name one, if he was like, you know what, I really dig this Republican and they're great, maybe then I would give you some credit there. But he's actually vilified Republicans repeatedly.
He's vilified what he considered. I don't even know if I'd use the term vilified, but he's gone after MAGA Republicans, and he's specified, and he said there are a lot of good Republicans out there. He said that time and time again. But I think when he refers to MAGA Republicans, those are the, to this day, huge Donald Trump supporters, the type of people that Donald Trump said he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue, and, you'll still vote for me. Let's go to the phone calls, 702-221-7283. Again, 702-221-7283. Let's go to line 2. I believe it's Cyrus. Let's go to Cyrus. Hi, Cyrus. Thanks for calling in. What's on your mind? Hello, Cyrus. Are you there? Line 3, I think. I'm sorry. Did I say line 2? Line 3. Let's go to Cyrus. Hi, Cyrus. What's going on? Are you there, my friend?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You hear me?
Sorry about that. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I have respect for people who do not and actually support Donald Trump. Both sides. They make very good points. I think the people who have issues with Trump need to understand why he got elected in the first place. I think 2016 was really the year where a lot of people, particularly on the progressive left, felt betrayed. Had Bernie didn't run in the presidential primaries, where people even then believed that the primaries were rigged against him, Trump would have not been elected. The fact is that a lot of the people in the Democrat side were not getting their campaign promises fulfilled by Obama. And I think that's what led to Donald Trump, along with blue states are in such a mess. And the fact that every president we've had since LBJ to Obama has been just taking our country to a wrong direction.
Michelle, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that you're right. I think, Trump was elected because they were disappointed with the way things were going, and they certainly didn't want Hillary Clinton. And that in 2016, he had a message that resonated with more people than not. But 2020 was a different story. They want to change. They definitely want to change. But 2020 was a far different, was such a different election than 2016, right? I mean, it's such an apples to oranges comparison.
And I think what really happened was a lot of Bernie voters, who many voted for Obama, and prior Democrats were betrayed.
And they didn't vote for Hillary.
Jill Stein, and many of these people were frustrated with the Nevada Democrats, even in this state. But they were frustrated with Obamacare. Jill Stein said that bill was written by health insurance companies. Obama failed to break up the banks and address the Federal Reserve when the financial crisis happened. He pushed a Trans-Pacific Partnership, which both Bernie and Trump were against. So it was really just, a lot of failed promises. And remember, Obama ran on the policy of lowering gas prices when Bush was president. And look where we are now. Now, to be fair, gas prices plunged in the second term of Obama. But now we seem like, Democrats are not so focused on gas prices like they used to be. So a lot of this was just, the betrayal that Obama could not fulfill his promises. And remember, for his first 2 years, Democrats, I believe, had the supermajority. And we didn't even get a public option. We didn't even get a minimum wage increase. That's where the problem is. And I think the issue is that the Dems are so focused on cultural and social issues and have kind of dropped the corporate.
Okay, but hold on. I have to push back on what you just said. The Dems are so focused on cultural issues. What about Republicans when it comes to drag queens reading books to our children, critical race theory, banning books?
It's both. It's both. Okay. I'm saying is that there is an issue when you are focusing on those issues and using that as a way to distract from Wall Street and all these other issues where corporate America and the super rich are screwing people in the you-know-what. Mm-hmm. That is where I have a problem with, because that is used as a distraction. And it can happen on both sides.
All right, fair enough. I do believe a lot of things can happen on both sides, but I have a lot of criticism. Yeah. I have a lot of criticism on conspiracy theories when it comes to the right these days. But yes, you can certainly have both on both sides. And it seems to me like the Ron DeSantis's of the world are the ones that are into the cultural wars, banning books and critical race theory. And our teachers are indoctrinating our kids, so on and so forth. Cyrus, good to hear from you, my friend. I appreciate you calling in. Okay.
Great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank
and
you so
by
much.
the way, one last point.
Yep.
May I give one last point?
Yeah.
Even though, yes, I agree on Trump on a few issues, I really think we can do a better candidate. I think we could really have a third party, for heaven's sake.
I'm not going to disagree with you on that one, Cyrus. We definitely agree on that one. I appreciate you calling in, my man. Thank you so much.
Great pleasure.
Thank you. 702-221-7283. Jim, why don't we go to Jim next? Jim is next on Pushing the Limits, 702-221-7283. Hi, Jim. Thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
Hey. Oh, thank you. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I just really, I'm now a proud American citizen. I was born in Canada and raised in Canada. I'm now 55 years old. I would love to know why the popular vote doesn't mean anything in the United States.
That is such a good question. And you know what,
Yeah.
Jim? It should. And you know why it doesn't?
Well, no, I actually
Electoral College.
The
the Electoral College was Jim Crow law, right?
Well, no, the Electoral College is giving smaller states a voice, because if the popular vote,
why?
Okay, I'm about to answer that question for you. Okay, so if the popular vote was all that mattered, then we would basically be saying San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York City, Chicago, they get to determine everything. But by having an electoral college, that's I'm sure that's because you probably have a liberal point of view. But people in Iowa, people in New Hampshire, people in Montana, people in smaller states, they want to have a representation as well.
So why do they get 2 senators when they only have a 4 million population?
But they only
get 2 million.
Well, they only get 1 congressional representative.
Well, shouldn't California and New York have 10?
So everyone according to the Constitution, every state gets 2 senators.
No,
but
not the Constitution. No, you're talking about the Electoral College. You're not talking about the Constitution.
Okay, so let me explain how politics works. Every state Every state has 2 senators, and then in the House of Representatives, it is proportional based on population. So states like Vermont has only 1 member of the House of Representatives, but it has 2 senators. States like the great state of Nevada have 2 senators.
And you think that's good? That Vermont has 2 senators?
Yes, because it's equal representation.
They should have none. They should have half of one.
All right, well, hold on. Let me just interject here real quickly, and I'm going to speak in layman's terms. and this is maybe where Jim and I agree, and it's not because I'm a liberal. I don't care where you live in this country. You can live in New York or Idaho, wherever. Your vote should mean just as much as the person on the other side of the country. And in my opinion, it shouldn't matter what part of the country you live in. The reason why, in my personal opinion, this is probably where Michelle and I will disagree. The reason why Republicans support the Electoral College, and I'll just give the last 7 presidential elections, 6 of the last 7 presidential elections, the Republican candidate has lost the popular vote. The reason why Republican presidents are winning is because of something called the Electoral College. Donald Trump lost the popular vote. I don't care whether you live in Vermont or New York or LA. That person's vote should matter just as much in LA as it does in Las Vegas, Connecticut, New Hampshire, wherever. But that is not the way they set it up. And I don't care what the Constitution says. I don't care what a Republican could come up with excuses of why the Electoral College is so great. The bottom line is votes don't matter and count the same in one state as they do in another because of the Electoral College. And that is BS. That is nonsense. It should be whoever gets the most
when did
votes.
When did the Electoral College become law?
I don't even know the answer to that. Michelle, do you know when the Electoral College became law?
When was it a part of the Constitution? I'd have to get the
I don't
exact
know.
year.
No, it was not part of the Constitution. It was set up Jim Crow.
Okay, well, there you go.
Well, how do we know that this
I
guy's
mean,
right?
when
he's
we
just
said
a
that
Joe
black
Collin.
people,
We don't know him.
Well, I don't know whether he's right or
said
wrong.
that black people are 2/3 human, and the Southern Republicans didn't want them to vote. That's
the Electoral College was okay. So this guy's already wrong. So let me school you. The Electoral College was written into the U.S. Constitution in 1787. So it's been yes, it was my friend.
No,
I'm not
it
gonna.
was not.
My friend, it's a part of the Constitution
I
since
can
17.
Google it right now.
I'm Googling it right now, sir. You know
Constitution.
what? I don't need you to mansplain how to Google something. Thank
I'm
you
not
so
mansplaining.
much.
I'm talking to you as a human being.
No, sir,
I'm not
you've been
mansplaining.
mansplaining the whole freaking time, and it's been fabulous.
Freaking?
Thank you. I love it. I love it when gentlemen mansplain to me. It's beautiful. I'm glad that you have your opinion.
My
Michelle, your
friend,
audio
you
went
are
down.
a human
Did my audio
being.
go down too? On TikTok. I don't know what's going on.
And that's fine. And that's fine.
All right. Well, hey,
So
listen,
when
Jim.
was the Electoral College
In
started in the United States of America?
1787, September 6th,
No, it was not.
1780.
No, it
Okay,
was not.
sir, you know what? You can Google and learn it yourself. I'm sure you do a lot with your computer with your other hand.
Well, no, I don't. Actually, I work a lot, and I just love to take people like you down, human beings. I'm not mansplaining. It is not written in the Constitution.
Oh, well, then I hope you have a good
The
time
Electoral
Googling it and
College
learning
is
about
not
it.
written in the Constitution.
Have a
You've
great
got a
time learning
computer,
about
look
it.
up.
I am, sir. I'm the one with a computer in my hand right now looking it
Well,
up.
then look it up.
Sir,
When was the
All right, well,
Electoral
we're getting
College
nowhere
arguing
now.
with people who
We're
don't
getting-
like facts.
We're getting
is
nowhere
pointless.
now. Jim, I appreciate you calling in, my friend. I apologize for the audio issues we're having on TikTok. Maybe I should start another feed. What do you think, Michelle?
I think your feed's fine.
All right. They're saying there's audio issues. I don't know what's going on there, but we are on the radio. We are on YouTube. We are on Facebook. 702-221-7283. Going back to what that gentleman said, though, here's where I do agree with him. Personally, I don't know, and I don't care when the Electoral College was written or who wrote it. The bottom line is, if you vote in certain parts of the country, your vote isn't as important as in other parts of the country because of the Electoral College. That's wrong. I believe every vote should be based on popular vote. It shouldn't be based on the Electoral College. I think the Electoral College is a scam.
And that's fine. That's fine to have that opinion. It's fine to have that opinion. If you, I don't agree with that opinion, and it's fine that I don't agree with that. Everyone's opinion is fine. I don't have a problem with people's opinions. I have a problem when people like alternative facts.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I can't speak to Michelle where the Electoral College was written. I'm just saying that votes should be based on popular vote, and it shouldn't be based on the Electoral College. But hey, let's take some more of your phone calls. 702-221-7283. Oh my God, I think we got the audio back on social media. That's good. Let's go to, that was a very fun phone call, actually. I enjoy it when Michelle gets insulting other people because it's very rare. She doesn't do that. She was like mini Brian Shapiro there for a minute. That got me really excited. Anyway, let's go to John. John is next on Pushing the Limits. What's up, John?
Oh my God. I don't recall eating a handful of acid before I turned on the great Pushing the Limits radio program.
Oh, John, I missed you. How are you?
Good, Michelle. I'm glad you're back. Cyrus, nobody cares about Obama anymore, man. Get your head out of your behind. It's clear you have an agenda. It was always my understanding that the Electoral College protected against populism. So if you got 50% plus one vote, you could do away with the government and install your own. And
John, why do we have the Electoral College?
I just said. I thought it was to protect against populism.
Yes, and
if you had 50% plus one vote, you could overthrow the government and install your own. I mean, Trump came close to being able to do something like that, right? He's at 40% with his clown base, and another thing that was, I don't know, I didn't look it up, I didn't Google it, but that was the number one reason I always remembered. And also, you got to remember, back in those days, there was no internet. Virtually nobody had a college degree. People really didn't understand what was going on. They were following, and the people that framed the Constitution thought they were a little bit smarter. And maybe they were, but now clearly it's failed. But the reason I called, Michelle.
Yes.
I can't talk long. Once again, you made me fall off my chair, hit my head on the corner of my desk. I got to go get some more stitches.
What did I say now?
I'm gushing blood. You said Joe Biden needs to come out and point out which Republicans he likes. Oh my God, this acid I'm on is just driving me bananas. The front runner of the Republican Party is a self-admitted serial sexual assaulter named Donald Trump, who's going to be indicted next week, who is a complete fraud, who has designs on overthrowing the government and becoming dictator-in-chief. You guys, you sane Republicans, which I include you, Michelle, need to tell him to piss off and go pound salt and stop trying to ruin my country. And then after sane Republicans do that, maybe Joe Biden should give consideration to praising some good Republicans.
Oh, that I don't imagine Joe Biden's ever going to give any praise to any Republicans. I was just trying to make a point that I don't think he really does care for many of us at all. But
I think he's look, Cyrus, if you're listening, Obama realizes that you have to work with both sides to get things done. Biden is cut from the same cloth. He does go out of his way to not throw all Republicans under the bus. If I was president, I might.
I don't agree, though. Look at his budget, John. Look at his budget. His budget is clearly not anything that he's saying he wants to work on a bipartisan level. He's clearly throwing down the gauntlet and saying, screw you guys.
John, I will say this in closing. Please stay off that acid, okay?
Oh, man, I got to go get them.
And I hope you have a wonderful weekend, John, and we'll talk to you on Monday, my friend, okay?
Great talking to you, Michelle.
Thanks, John.
Great seeing you, John.
Who do we have next here? 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you want to be a part of the program. I believe we have Stephen Fry joining us next on the line. Mr. Fry is next. Mr. Fry, what's going on, my friend?
Yeah, I want John to share some of his acid with me because I agree with everything he said. And Michelle is a MAGA Republican because she equates Donald Trump's insurrection and attempt to overthrow the government in so many different ways with Biden saying that the people, 5 people died as a result of or whatever his term was. There's no connection between those two. Attempting to throw over the government and kill your vice president is infinitely more disgusting and disgraceful and anti-democratic than Biden saying that they died on or the day after. The fact of the matter is they would not have died if it were not for Donald Trump and the insurrection. So that's the old famous, what about it? What about? So that's Michelle's. What about that? You cannot compare Biden in any way, shape, or fashion. His accomplishments in the first 2 years overwhelmingly exceed Trump's accomplishments. And thank God Biden is the president, or our democracy would be in real trouble because Ukraine would be losing to Russia, because Trump would be kissing Putin's buttocks because Putin helped get him elected in 2016. That was also illegal. So everything about Trump is disgusting and everything about Michelle trying to pretend that she's a good, honorable Republican is disgusting. She's a MAGA Republican, and she's probably going to say I man-slapped her, and I'm fine with that.
Michelle, I'm going to let you respond to that.
Well, you're free to your opinion, sir.
Thank you, and it's accurate. It's absolutely correct. And anytime you defend Trump in any way, shape, or fashion, you are anti-democratic. You are MAGA. You are not a good Republican. You are just as bad as Jim Jordan and all the rest of them.
Well, you are free to your opinion.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Dr. Fry, I appreciate you calling in. Thank you very much. Michelle, I thought you were going to give him a little bit of pushback there.
No, I don't talk to trash.
Wow. Okay. Well, Michelle's on fire today.
Dr. Fry is nothing but an egotistical piece of trash with a very small eggplant who overcompensates.
Well, I know Stephen pretty well.
I know him too. He tried to put his hand in my face because he can't handle a strong woman.
Well, I mean, I would
He's a very weak little man.
Well,
Napoleon complex all the way.
I would go by substance of what he said.
He doesn't have much substance. He's a small man who came on the radio to say some very mean things about a woman, about a mother, which is what he likes to do.
What did he say about you that was mean?
He's a very weak little man. And I'll let him say, and I think it's great that he likes to come on a radio show and say his big little words and act like he's a big, strong man. He's not a big, strong man. He's a tiny little man, and he knows it.
I don't think he said anything about you personal.
He tries to make it very personal, but you know what?
He was talking about your political beliefs.
He got to do what he wanted, and he got to act like he was a big, strong man. He's a big, strong liberal. I let him just say it to me, and I just acted like he could say whatever he wants, and I just took it like a submissive little MAGA, because that's what men like him want. So
I don't know if you defend Donald Trump today. At least I haven't heard you defend him a lot lately. You do attack Democrats a lot. You don't talk about it, but I don't know if that necessarily means you defend it. Well, let me just ask you straight up then. Do you put any responsibility on Donald Trump for what took place on January 6th?
100% I do.
Okay, so that's not defending Donald Trump.
No, the things he was saying about me are not true.
Now, Michelle,
Dr. Fry.
but to be fair, there are a lot of understood. But that's why I asked you that.
But I am not gonna lower myself to Dr. Fry's standards because I'm not a tiny little man.
No, you did call him trash, though. That wasn't very nice.
Well,
but
I could have said a lot more.
But Michelle, you do admit, though, I appreciate you saying that about Donald Trump, but you understand, though, that there are a lot of Republicans out there that would not answer the question the way you just did. And that's the frustration.
100%. And that's why a lot of people are frustrated with me as a Republican. And it's so funny because Doug Basham and I were having this conversation the other day. He's like, you're so different than Republicans. I said, no, I'm really not a different Republican, Doug. I am a strong Christian, conservative, ultra-right Republican. The difference is I used a different word that I can't use here on the radio. I'll use this word. I'm not a jerk.
Right. Well, I think you have to be.
I can be feisty and I can push back and I can, but at the end of the day, I'm not a jerk.
Yeah. Well, I am.
And that's what the difference is.
I'm a proud jerk. Anyway, here's what we're going to do. Let's take one more call, then we'll go to break. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Carl. Carl is next. What's going on, Carl?
Hello, Brian, Michelle. Brian, I think you know where my politics mostly lie, but this might shock you. I actually do believe that was just tourists going into, from what Tucker Carlson showed, just tourists going into the Capitol. But the problem is they're all mentally ill tourists. That was the big problem with that.
Well, I think when you are dumb enough, and I'm just going to call it for what it is, to storm into a Capitol thinking you can change the outcome of an election, you obviously have an extremely low IQ. Just about all those people that were there, very stupid people, some of them violent people, not all. Some of them white supremacists, not all. Some of them assaulted police officers, not all. There was violent people and then there were nonviolent people. But even if you're a nonviolent person and you storm the Capitol without injuring somebody, it is still punishable by law. I don't know why that's so hard for people to understand. Some people.
Well, I've seen some email. I saw an email that Tucker Carlson actually sent to somebody in his network, saying that he thought Donald Trump was a complete idiot and mentally ill.
Right.
And and that was Tucker Carlson. So it just shows they say things like what they say is
Carl,
just
let me
for
ask
money
you
and for
something else.
ratings.
I'm glad you brought that up. Can you imagine, let's just hypothetically say, if Don Lemon sent somebody text messages that said Joe Biden is in the bunker and he's senile and Joe Biden is you-know-what crazy. What do you think Republicans would do with that information if they found out that Jake Tapper was texting some of his friends within, text messages saying that Joe Biden was a piece of garbage and that Joe Biden shouldn't be president? Do you think that do you think that they would still have a job at CNN? Of course they would.
No, of course
Republicans would
Well,
salivate over that.
yeah.
That's exactly what Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, and by the way, let's talk about Laura Ingram for a moment. I want to get your thoughts on this, and you too, Michelle. When January 6th was happening, most reasonable human beings thought to themselves, geez, we don't want people to get hurt, right? We want the violence to stop. That's what the majority, I'd like to think, of good Americans thought. What went through Laura Ingram's mind? It wasn't, oh my God, we don't want people getting hurt. Wasn't worried about people's safety. You know what she was worried about? Donald Trump's legacy. And she texted Meadows and she said that this is going to ruin his legacy. Laura Ingram wasn't concerned about people being hurt or killed. Her first thought was, oh my God, Donald Trump and his legacy. And that is the type of person that Laura Ingram is.
Yeah, well, they want to think really about their own jobs too, is one thing. But I want Michelle to hear this. I told you the other day, when I listen to what somebody talks, because I was trained that way, I listen to what they say. And I told you the other day that before even the election, when Donald Trump was running for office, these are things I heard him say, which I analyzed and said, look, there's something extremely wrong with this man. First, he said when there were hurricanes coming into this country while he was running, he said, let's drop atomic bombs in the hurricanes and that'll break them up. Well, of course, it would kill anybody from the radiation.
Of course, he also,
then he said,
of course.
Yeah, then he said the Continental Army during the Revolutionary War took over the airports, and that's how they won the Revolutionary War.
Well, he also talked about airplanes. Possibly injecting yourself with disinfectant. So I think we all know Donald Trump is a bumbling fool. Carl, it's always good to hear from you, my friend. I got to go. I'm up against a break, but I always appreciate you calling in, my friend, and thank you so much, okay?
But when you hear things like that, you know there's something mentally wrong.
Well, I tend to agree with you. There's a lot of things wrong with Donald Trump. I appreciate you calling in, Carl.
Sure.
Michelle, I don't know if you agree with me on that, but Laura Ingram's texts were made public. And when January 6th was going on, by the way, she's not the only one. Sean Hannity was texting Meadows and a bunch of other people. But Laura Ingram did not text Meadows about, geez, we got to get the president to put out a video and stop this and call out the violence because we don't want people getting hurt. She was worried about Donald Trump's legacy.
I don't want to be too harsh on her, only because I don't know what the whole text chain was. And the only reason I say that is because just remembering where I was on January 6th and watching it and going through it, there were just such a bevy of emotions of, oh my God, we need this to stop. Oh my God, we need the president to say something. Oh my goodness, this is horrible. And there was a point at some point, I don't know at what point I thought about this, but I actually think I thought it before January 6th, to be perfectly honest with you. There reached this point where I was like, he is destroying all the good that he did do in his time in office. And that ultimately would be his legacy as well. So I don't know that the comment itself was wrong, because there was a point where you go, what is wrong with this dude? Why is he not thinking about the future? I mean, I often go, what is Trump thinking? Why are you doing this?
You know why? Because he's a horrible person and he only cares about himself.
Because I think he's an extreme narcissist. I think he's an histrionic narcissist with the inability to self-regulate in any way, shape, or form.
Example. While January 6th was going on, Donald Trump not only didn't call in the National Guard, but he sat on his ass for 4 hours. It took him 4 hours to put out a video.
Agreed. And I don't think that was right. I think it was completely wrong. I'm just saying, I don't know where in the text chain that was said. So I'm not going to go and attack her.
So the January 6th committee, through subpoenas and what have you, got text messages between Meadows. And by the way, Meadows.
Correct. If that was the only text she sent.
Yes, it was. So we have the entire text thread. It wasn't very long with Meadows, but reason why I bring that up, and I think Laura Ingram's brother would probably agree with me on this, she's despicable because she didn't think like many human beings like you and me that have empathy for people. She wasn't thinking about we weren't thinking about Donald Trump's legacy at that moment. Get Donald Trump to say something. We got to end this. People are going to get hurt. People could get killed. I wasn't thinking to myself, oh, we just don't want Democrats to get hurt. Who cares about the Republicans? No, I would never say that. I didn't want Mike Pence to get hurt any more than I didn't want Nancy Pelosi to get hurt.
No.
I didn't want anybody to get hurt. Even, by the way, some of the insurrectionists, some of those people weren't violent. I didn't want anybody to be killed or hurt. Ashley Babbitt was shot and killed. Now, she was an extremist, and if you don't believe me, you can go back and look at her history and her videos. She had a history of doing some violent things, if you also look at her history. But with that being said, I didn't want her to die. She put herself in that position, but she would not have been there if Donald Trump didn't say the election was stolen a million times.
That's the biggest, I think the biggest crime of it all, and the biggest shame of it all, is that for whatever reason, there were millions of people who were led to believe that something magical was going to happen that day, and that an election could be overturned, and that Mike Pence could somehow do a little voodoo spell and it would all be the way they all wanted it.
But who perpetuated that?
And Donald Trump was the one who perpetuated
Correct.
it. And that is really what the shame is. That's why I've been very candid and very honest that my big problem with Trump really happened after the election, in that those latter days in November, those days in December, where this lie was being perpetuated. And constitutionally speaking, I knew the entire time, because I actually know the Constitution. I know Jimmy out there thinks he's more of a constitutionalist than I am, but I actually know the Constitution. There was no way that Mike Pence could overturn this election. There was no way. It was not going to happen. Yet there were so many people that I know, people who I like, who genuinely believed this lie. And it was frustrating and so sad to see, because people really do believe what they want to believe. You can tell someone a lie, and if it's the lie that they want to believe more than anything, they will hang on to it like it is truth, and they will hang on to it and not let it go. And there were so many people who wanted to hang on to it and hung on to it and believed it so much that they were willing to storm the freaking Capitol.
Yeah.
And that breaks my heart, because we should not be that stupid.
Well, there are a lot of followers of Donald Trump that are, unfortunately, that did what they did that day. And Donald Trump hasn't owned up to, and he never will admit that he lost the 2020 election. Trump will never admit that he played a role in what took place on January 6th. And to this day, the Kerry Lakes of the world are following suit.
But the problem is, and this is the problem, I guess, with the Republican Party today, is I can still be a hardcore conservative Republican who hates the budget that Joe Biden just put out, and have my conservative values and belief systems, and really adhere to quite a few of all of the Republican belief systems and values, and still know that what happened that day was wrong. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't make me less of a Republican, because I know what the Constitution says. It should make me more of a Republican. The problem is that it doesn't. And here's where the problem is I can speak the truth like I just did to you here plainly. And because you and I are friends, you can go, hey, Michelle, I don't agree with you politically, but I know you just spoke the truth, and like, we're cool. The problem is that you've got Democrats like Dr. Fry who can't see the truth and won't hear the truth from me and just want to be mean and judgmental. There's people like Caller Jimmy who want to come and mansplain to me what the Constitution says when he doesn't even know what the Constitution says. There's people like the folks on TikTok who just want to say, Michelle doesn't even know who the president is right now. It's Joe Biden. Of course I know who the president is right now. What kind of idiots do you take me for? There's people who are like, where was she on TV? I was on TV from 1999 till 2018. I've been on TV most of my life. Just because you don't know a fact doesn't mean that it's not a fact. You know what I mean? And that's what's sad, is that people just don't seem to know the truth, and they are far more comfortable with believing a lie because it's convenient for them to believe that lie.
I don't disagree with you, but that is, Michelle, and I'm speaking in general terms now, not necessarily you, but this is my frustration with the Republican Party. Many of them seem to believe in lies. 2020 election, was a hoax, and Donald Trump won it in a landslide. COVID is a hoax. Millions of people are dying from the vaccine. I had a lady who was a guest on the show yesterday who claimed that all these kids were dropping dead from myocarditis. And then when I asked her to prove it and name me one person, she couldn't do so. And I'm sorry, but today in 2023, many of these so-called lies are coming from the right. Am I suggesting that everybody on the left is honest? Absolutely not. I'm not suggesting that. There are Democrats that lie as well and probably will say and do whatever it takes to become to win and get into office. I don't deny that. But today, the whole of the Republican Party, Kevin McCarthy, the House Speaker, gave tapes to Tucker Carlson, absolutely knowing what Tucker Carlson was going to do with that video. He knew. Marjorie Taylor Greenes, the Lauren Boeberts, the Jim Jordans, the Matt Gaetz, they are conspiracy theorist liars, and they are all despicable. And sadly, there are a lot of Republicans that endorse those type of candidates. And I think that's sadly where the Republican Party is at today. And in my personal opinion, it's very problematic. I also use the term dangerous. It's dangerous. And I'll also give you an example of what I'm talking about. There's no accountability. For example, Paul Pelosi. Michelle, we all know what happened to Paul Pelosi. He was hit with a hammer and attacked and almost died, right? So many Republicans were spreading conspiracy theories about that. This was his gay lover. He was led into the premises. Big name Republicans. Ted Cruz was a part of it. Candace, Parker. I'm sorry, not Candace Parker. Candace Owens. Candace Parker's a great basketball player.
Oh, I was like, who's Candace Parker?
No, great basketball player. Candace Owens. And here's the thing, Michelle. When they actually released the video, which I don't know if you saw.
I did watch it.
Yeah, terrible, right? No conspiracy theories there. He wasn't his gay lover. He broke into the complex. Did we see any of these Republicans make retractions or say, hey, you know what? I got that one wrong. My apologies to the Pelosi family. When Scalise was shot, I guess by a Bernie Sanders supporter, I didn't hear one prominent Democrat make jokes about that or say that was his gay lover. No, you know what they were all saying, including Nancy Pelosi? You know what they were all saying? This is horrible. There's no place for this in politics. Our thoughts and prayers for Mr. Scalise, and we hope he makes it through, praying for his family. And you know what? That's the right thing to do. And I didn't make any incendiary comments about Scalise when I was on the air either. But I feel like from the right, when a horrific tragedy like this happened, and Paul Pelosi's lucky to be alive. By the way, I don't like Nancy Pelosi. I don't like Paul Pelosi. I don't like what they stand for.
Did you think the video was, I thought it was so weird when you're watching the cops go to the door and those two are just standing there. And then all of a sudden, like a light switch, that dude flips and
Well, he was holding him hostage, right?
Right.
You got Pelosi there in his underwear, right?
Yeah.
It was in the middle of the night. And then the guy hits him over the head with a hammer and almost kills him. But what gets me...
It was weird, though. Was it? Can you at least admit that? It was weird.
Well, I think anybody's weird when they go into somebody's household and try to kill somebody. In this case, he was a right-wing extremist.
See, that's the thing I don't believe. I don't believe this dude is a right-wing extremist. I believe this dude was a freak show.
Okay, well, of course he was a freak show.
But I don't.
Both.
I don't.
Spewed the right-wing propaganda about Nancy Pelosi.
He's a Berkeley freak show, though, and maybe it's because I'm from the Bay Area. I just think this was a Berkeley, high as a kite.
Okay, perhaps that's true, but I'm just going. If you go by his social media, he spewed what you called lies, right-wing propaganda about the 2020 election, about Dr. Fauci, about COVID. All that other stuff might be true, and it probably is. But the bottom line and the point I'm trying to make is all the Republicans out there, and there were many of them, including Charlie Kirk and a lot of these, prominent Twitter, social media influencers that are far on the right. They were the ones, Dinesh D'Souza, that were spreading propaganda about Paul Pelosi, that this was his gay lover and this was some liberal that went in there and was allowed in. My point is, first of all, that's disgusting. And then when the absolutely were proven wrong with the video that was released, they didn't retract anything.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I think that's one of the hardest parts about media today. And as a Republican, I think it's one of the hardest things I've faced with media today. You have to be successful in media today in the world of politics, you have to be an extremist.
Mm-hmm.
That's
very sad.
There is no in between.
Do you?
Yeah, you absolutely do. You have to be an extremist. And if you're not an extremist, you're not going to be very successful.
To win elections, you're talking about?
Not just to win
Just to be
elections. No,
popular.
even like, let's say you want to be a Republican commentator, right? I am not the type of Republican commentator people want. They want an extremist. So whether you're a liberal commentator or Republican, you've got to be an extremist.
Do you feel like there's a liberal commentator that's an extremist? Like, can you name off the top of your head someone, not somebody that's far to the left, but like an extremist?
Van Jones has his extreme moments.
I wouldn't say Van Jones.
I wouldn't call him an extremist.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that he has some extreme
He's
moments.
liberal. He's
but
liberal.
there's sometimes that, but no, there's so many liberal commentators on CNN and MSNBC. Maybe Rachel Maddow can sometimes be extreme, but
I don't like Rachel Maddow, but I don't think she's ever like incited violence. When I hear about an extremist, to me, it's somebody that could incite violence and spreads blatant lies that can hurt people. Now, Rachel Maddow is very biased, and she's very far to the left, and I find her personally to be very boring. I don't watch her show. But I don't think Rachel Maddow is, like, when I think extremist, I think someone that's dangerous for this country. Like when I watch Fox News and I watch Tucker Carlson.
I know you think Fox News is dangerous for this country. I do not believe that Fox News is dangerous for this country at all. I get that you do. And that's where we're very, very different. This belief system that Fox News is dangerous for this country is ridiculous.
Well, let me ask you a question about that. Here's why I disagree with you. When you have the head of the network knowing that Donald Trump's lies about the 2020 election were what they were lies. And when hosts at Fox News also knew that they were lies, but yet they spread lies about the 2020 election for only to make money and profit, that is a direct attack on our democracy, and people believe that. How can you say that's not dangerous?
Here's the problem. You think that's dangerous. You know what I also think is dangerous? That we've perpetuated a lie that there are more than two genders when there are not more than two genders. There is male and female, and that is it. We perpetuate lies on the left and we perpetuate lies on the right all the time. It's about what lie you're comfortable with.
Okay, but let's go with that. Let's go with that.
And that's what the problem is.
Can you give me an example of a Democrat not defining what's a man and what's a woman that either caused an insurrection or killed people?
It doesn't matter if it causes an insurrection or not. It's
that defines what's dangerous and what's not dangerous.
No. In my opinion, that's not it. Because what's dangerous is the fact that you're perpetuating a lie that there are more than two genders, that we now have a confused state of the world, that now that there's like 114 genders and we just don't even have truth anymore. That can be just as dangerous as inciting a riot or inciting violence.
Well, I disagree with you, but when it comes to the gender thing, okay, yes, if you're born a man, you're a man. If you're born a woman, you're a woman. There is something called transgender surgery. Now, if your definition is different than somebody else's definition, me personally, I don't care. I'll call somebody a man or call somebody a woman. I don't think that's going to cause people to die. But my point is, there is a fine line difference between that subject and attacks on our democracy. And January 6th is a perfect example of the perpetual lies. And here's what makes it even worse at Fox News. They knew it was a lie. The head of Fox News admitted they knew it was a lie. The hosts knew. They knew it was a lie. And they went on television with huge platforms and perpetuated a lie, knowing it was a lie. Many of their viewers believed it. And the only reason why they did it that I can come up with is for profits and money. And then we have situations like January 6th, and we have people that don't have beliefs in our democracy or our voting. And then all of a sudden, when a lawsuit comes by, like the Dominion lawsuit, then all of a sudden we actually do learn the truth. I find that to be extremely problematic.
But I mean, I think I've spent the longest time at CBS. Or maybe I spent the longest amount of time at ABC, actually. But I've also been with NBC. I've also been with Fox. I had a brief time when I was with Good Morning America. I had a brief time where I was with CNN.
Yep.
So I've been with a lot of these networks. And I'll just tell you, all of them do things for profit. All of them do things for profit, for their personal benefit, and for their gain.
Absolutely.
And they do things that aren't always on the up and up. So, I've been in enough newsrooms for the majority of my life to tell you that.
I don't deny that. And there's nothing wrong with doing things for profit unless, in my personal opinion, it can hurt people, unless it's dangerous, unless it's malicious. It's one thing to be doing things for profit. It's another thing to be doing things for profit when you know you're putting out propaganda and lies. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. Let me take one more phone call before we go to break. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Fernando, who's been waiting patiently on hold. What's up, Fernando?
Yeah, hey guys, good show, good topics. Just want to clarify. You're talking about the January 6th. A lot of people say, why do these people get so much time? Well, they committed crimes on federal property.
Right.
You cannot commit crimes on government property. In those cases, the sentences go up. So you see people getting 4 years, 5 years, whatever. Well, sorry, that's the way it is when you do stuff like that. But that's all I wanted to say. And you guys have a great weekend and enjoy the show.
Thanks, Fernando. Appreciate that. And I agree with what you said. There has to be accountability. If you break the law, you have to pay for it. I hear many Republicans talk about, well, Democrats, they're not tough enough on the books, the laws that are on the books. But then when it comes to January 6th, they want to release all those, as they call, political prisoners. Let's take a quick break. Number to call, 702-221-7283. We'll take a break. And by the way, when we come back, Colin Kaepernick with some very interesting comments about his own parents. It's making some controversy. We'll talk about that when we come back. I want to tell you guys about my good friends about Sahara West Urgent and Primary Care, located at 6125 West Sahara Avenue. No appointment needed, but you can give them a call, 702-248-0554. I was in and out of there in 20 minutes. They treated me like family. Andrew and Jessica, I promise you, they'll take care of you. They're wonderful people. Check out their website, SaharaWestUrgentCare.com. They take most insurances. If you don't have insurance, it's only a $95 payment. How can you beat that? Sahara West Urgent and Primary Care. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP. Hey, everybody. It's Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits. I want to tell you guys about Sahara West Urgent Care and Wellness. They're conveniently located on the southwest corner of Sahara and Jones. They're open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. At Sahara West Urgent Care, they'll take care of all your healthcare needs. They offer routine services such as physicals, STD testing, car accident treatment, and work injuries. You name it, they do it. They have on-site X-ray, EKG, ultrasound, and labs. They treat chronic conditions such as asthma, blood pressure, diabetes, and more. They also offer general wellness exams and treatments such as testosterone enhancement and cancer screening. They're located on Sahara, 6125 West Sahara Avenue. Their number is 702-248-0554. And the best part, they accept most major insurances and affordable cash pay prices, office visits starting at just $95. And I'm also a client. So please give them a call, 702-248-0554. Look, it's impossible for the average person to find a great attorney out there. There's so much misinformation. Now, let me introduce you to former Chief Deputy District Attorney Thomas Moskal. He was Las Vegas's top DUI prosecutor for years. He prosecuted the most high-profile DUI cases in Clark County. No one knows more about DUI law in Nevada. Just Google it. If you get charged with DUI, whether it's a misdemeanor or even more importantly, a felony, you need Thomas Moskal representing you. His relationships with the prosecutors and judges and his knowledge of DUI law to work for you. So give him a call now or text him at 702-848-5555. It's your life and liberty that's at stake. Don't wait. Call now. That number again, 702-848-5555.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premier Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super hero, that is, because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
The best choice for convenience, comfort, and value, My Place hotels are ideal for both short-term and long-term travelers. The rooms at My Place features pillow-top mattresses, microfiber bedding, and a variety of soft and firm pillows. All extended stay rooms offer their own kitchen, which includes a full-size refrigerator and a cooktop. On-site laundry facilities are also available for extended stays at pet-friendly My Place hotels. Book your stays online at myplacehotels.com. My Place Hotels, St. George and West Jordan, Utah. Make My Place your place.
Shopping is always easy with the Radio Shopping Show. Whether it's shopping during any one of our live shows right here on AM 1400 or listening live on the KSHP app, you can always call in at 702-221-7283 to pick up great deals with your favorite host. Or shop 24/7 at kshp.com. Go to kshp.com and select Shopper's Guide to browse hundreds of businesses featured on the show. Place your order online and we'll have it shipped right to your front door. With so many possibilities, it's hard not to shop.
The Klondike Casino is a friendly local spot that features their signature restaurant, the Klondike Grill, serving up fresh food fast. Open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner just off the 95 freeway on Sunset Road in Henderson. You will find the Klondike Casino featuring all your favorite games from the Strip in the comfort of a neighborhood casino. You can place a bet at their full-service sports book or start your day with a breakfast plate that comes with your choice of potato and toast. Or check us out for lunch or dinner and try one of our many sandwiches like the popular beer-battered fish sandwich or the Philly cheesesteak. Check out the full menu at KlondikeSunset.com.
All right, welcome back on Friday. It's Pushing the Limits, and I'm so glad you all could join us. Just saw something very disturbing, a baby that looks like Chris Wynn. I don't even know how to react to that. But anyway, that was
He's 20 years
that's
old.
a 20-year-old?
20 years old. He's a UFC fighter. He's 20 years
A
old.
little person.
He's a little person.
Is that politically correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, to call somebody a little person. All right, fair enough. I'm right now. I don't even know what to say. But I want to tell you guys about my favorite gaming bar in town, Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. Man, do they have great promotions this month? They have great promotions every month, but this month, if you earn 200 points Wednesday or Sunday, you get $50 in free slot play. Who doesn't want that, folks? They got the Pass the Puck contest during Vegas Golden Knight games, and great food, great atmosphere, great bartenders. Brian and his wife Robin are wonderful people, the owners. Please check them out, Jackson's Bar and Grill, and tell them that the Pushing the Limits crew sent you. So, Michelle, Donald Trump's in a little bit of trouble. Your boy Donald Trump's not doing too good. Prosecutors have apparently signaled to Trump that he could now be facing actual criminal charges for making a hush money payment to the adult film actress, Stormy Daniels. He might actually be indicted on charges here. And this is very embarrassing for Donald Trump because he's already been offered in a grand jury for testimony. He's already been offered that they'd like him to speak. So he's dealing with that issue, and he's probably going to be indicted there because I think there's a paper trail. By the way, this is one of the reasons why Michael Cohen went to jail, and he will absolutely testify against Donald Trump. Meanwhile, while all this is going on, a federal judge has ruled that Jean Carroll, if you recall, she's the woman who claims that Donald Trump raped her. A judge has ruled she can use the infamous Access Hollywood tape in her rape defamation lawsuit against Donald Trump, further compounding the former president's legal woes. The judge has ruled that, listen, a lot of people think that's, maybe some Trump supporters think that's just locker room talk. The man bragged about sexual assault. Let's call it for what it is. You can grab them by your you-know-what. They let me do it. I mean, I guess that the wording of it isn't, maybe it's not sexual. I don't know. But anyway, it could be used in a court of law. I don't think there's any way Donald Trump is going to be the next president of the United States. I think he's got too many legal troubles surrounding him. I don't even know if he gets past Ron DeSantis. Maybe he would, maybe he wouldn't. I just don't know.
I don't know. A CPAC poll done this weekend, I think, had him at like 60%.
Well, that's CPAC, though. I mean,
That's true.
A lot of extremists at CPAC. Ron DeSantis didn't do well there, but I guarantee you, if you polled, that's like polling Ron DeSantis in Florida. Ron DeSantis would probably get 60% in Florida.
Yeah.
CPAC are Trumpers. Let's just call it for what it is. The overwhelming majority of them. And Ron DeSantis didn't even show up. He was asked to show up. He didn't want to talk. So, of course, the CPACers aren't going to say.
That's true. That's true. So that was a very pro-Trump event.
Of course.
And
yeah.
it'll be interesting.
Which, by the way, nobody showed up to.
Because DeSantis is in Iowa now, and Trump's going to be there on Monday. It'll be interesting to see the reception because I would put money on it today, and we could put money on it now if we want, and then we can in 2024 see how this goes. Or 23. I don't know when it happens. Iowa, I think DeSantis would win Iowa and then go up to New Hampshire, and Trump would win New Hampshire. That's what I think would happen.
Donald Trump is going to do what he did in 2020 and 2016. He's going to use the insults. He's going to go after DeSantis, and can DeSantis handle that? I actually personally believe if I was an advisor to Ron DeSantis, I would tell him to sit this one out. Wait till 2028 where he would probably win. I think it's a big mistake for him to run in 2024 because I don't think he's going to beat Donald Trump. I think he's making a mistake if he hasn't officially said he's going to run yet, but I would imagine he probably will. And I think he's making a big mistake.
Rumor has it he's already told people in his network that he is. I think the reason why he's doing it now, personally,
Yeah.
personal opinion, I think he's fundraising. So he can't, I believe he's term limited for governor. He can't run for governor again. So if he runs now, he can grab a ton of cash. He has his last 2 years as governor, and then he can continue to fundraise so that he can do the real run in 2028. That's what I think is happening.
I mean, I think he would be smarter in doing that. I think if he runs in 2024, he's going to lose. And by the way, if Donald Trump runs again,
but there's no harm in losing in a presidential primary. Because I mean, Ronald Reagan lost in a presidential primary.
I don't think he can go toe to toe with Donald Trump in a debate, and I think he could be embarrassed. That's why I think it could hurt him politically. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. I can tell you right now, Donald Trump versus Joe Biden wins. Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris. As much as I dislike Kamala Harris, she wins. Donald Trump versus a lot of Democrats, but I think it's going to be Joe Biden versus Donald Trump again, the two old fogies.
Why do you think he's taking so long to announce Joe Biden?
Well, he said he plans on running. I mean,
why do you think he hasn't announced yet? Like, why do you think he's taking his sweet time?
Nobody's ever really asked me that question. I don't know.
I'm curious. I'm curious why he's taking his sweet time.
Well, he's a pretty busy guy these days. Got a lot going on.
Well, he's acting as if he's running. He's kind of hopping around the country. His budget that he just put out is definitely throwing down the gauntlet of I just want to fight with Republicans and say Republicans are the problem.
Right.
He is doing everything that indicates I'm running, except saying I'm running.
He said he plans on running. I think a lot could happen between now and over the course of the next year or so. But I think also he's focused on, a lot what's going on in the world right now, which he should be. And I don't think he wants to be in the fray right now. He wants to be president, keep doing what he's doing. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. I would not be surprised if it's Donald Trump versus Joe Biden again. It appears right now as though it looks like I don't want Joe Biden to run again, but I think there's a lot of other candidates out there that would destroy Donald Trump. I mean, I've talked about Michelle Obama. I don't think she's going to run, but she would destroy any Republican, Ron DeSantis, anybody. But
I think the only good thing that will come out of a Joe Biden, Donald Trump rematch in 2024 is that by the time 2028 rolls around, I think the people will finally say, I'm tired of political dynasties. I'm tired of the same old candidates. And I think there will be a desire for something new. I think that will be finally the time that you're going to see younger, new blood come into politics, in presidential politics.
All right. Why don't we open up the phone lines again, since that was so fun last segment for Michelle? 702-221-7283. Again, that number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation is 702-221-7283. I believe we have a JD on the line. If that's correct, JD, go ahead.
Hello, gang.
Hi.
A couple of things. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Brian. A couple of things, if I may. First of all, just real quick, Brian, I think you just said that Trump would destroy DeSantis in a debate. I think DeSantis is 10 times smarter than Trump and would absolutely destroy him in any type of intellectual debate.
My response to that is just because you're smarter than somebody else doesn't mean you're going to defeat them in a debate. Donald Trump and the Republican base like the insults. They like the childish behavior. That's why Donald Trump defeated Hillary Clinton. That's why Donald Trump has been the face of the Republican Party. I agree with you. Ron DeSantis is probably more intelligent than Donald Trump. I don't disagree with that. But just because you're smarter than somebody else, for example, Hillary Clinton is much more intelligent in my eyes than Donald Trump, but Donald Trump defeated her because he beat her in the debates and he campaigned better than her. So I don't think just because you're smarter than somebody else, that means you're going to beat somebody.
And what I wanted to say in regard to this January 6th, just food for thought. I just thought of this listening to you earlier. Do you not think possibly, Michelle, Brian, that over the course of the last 2 years, with all the riots, the burning of the federal courthouses, the police stations, police cars, even on the inauguration day of Trump Washington, D.C. riots, Antifa, Occupy Wall Street, and Black Lives Matter, predominantly, and Lafayette Park, when they had to take Trump back into the safe house in the Capitol, that these people thought, hey, nothing is happening to many of those people. Nothing's going to happen to us.
Oh, I do think that, actually. I do think that played a part in it as well. I agree with you.
I'm trying to understand, though, when I bring up January 6th and the fact that the current president incited what took place that day to try to overthrow our election, why is it always whataboutism and let's talk about Black Lives Matter, which are two completely different entities?
Well, no, Brian. I bring up Antifa. I bring up Occupy.
What does Antifa and Occupy Wall Street have to do with January 6th?
Because of the history of what they had done for 2 years. And in regard to your statement on the National Guard, you said Trump didn't call. The police chief that day was in front of Congress 2 days ago. He said he called Pelosi, Schumer, and the mayor 76 times. He spoke to Pelosi 3 times, telling her, I need the National Guard. Trump and 4 of his advisors, 3 days earlier than January the 6th, offered the National Guard to the mayor, to Pelosi, and to Schumer, and they never got a response.
Where's the direct evidence of that? That Trump offered the National Guard, because that has been debunked, JD.
That's not been debunked.
Okay, then what's your source?
There's White House records of that.
Okay, I'd love to see the White House record of that, because that has never been shown public. And let me ask you another question. I'll go even further. I'll go even further.
Patel was in the meeting.
I'll go even further. The 4 hours during January 6th from the moment it happened, what did Donald Trump do during that 4 hours?
He did completely stupid, in my opinion. He did probably the biggest mistake of his career, his life. He did nothing. He was either befuddled. He was either stupid. He was either hoping something would happen. I don't know. But it was a colossal cluster. And regarding that meeting, it was the Secretary of Defense. It was Kash Patel. And it was 2 others and the president.
Okay. The most important part about that day and somebody's actions or lack of actions is that the current president of the United States, when we were under attack in that insurrection, you said it yourself, and you're right. Donald Trump did,
but he could
nothing.
Not. He needed Nancy Pelosi and Schumer and the mayor were in charge of the National Guard.
That is not true. They did not have the authority to do what you're saying, JD, is not true. But I go back to what I said earlier. Why is it that when we talk about January 6th, why is it that when you call in,
Brian, please, the president
what?
cannot send a National Guard unless the governors or the heads of the towns.
Here's what I want you to look up. I want you to do this in a non-biased way. I want you to do this in a non-biased way. I want you to Google Nancy Pelosi. Did she have the authority to call in the National Guard? And I want you to do some actual real, and I'm not talking about Fox News research or listening to a conservative show here research. I want you to do actual real research, number one. And number two, I go back to what I said earlier. Why is it that you always start a conversation when we talk about January 6th, talking about things that are irrelevant to that day? Antifa was not a part of January 6th. Black Lives Matter has nothing to do with January 6th. And here's another distinction. Here's another important distinction that I want to bring to you, bring to your attention. While no reasonable person would condone violence during the Black Lives Matter protest, could be burning down buildings, could be attacking a police officer. No sane person, and I haven't heard one prominent Democrat that condoned that. But with that being said, the overwhelming majority of people that were there during Black Lives Matter protests were there for equality. Make no mistake about it. The people that were there on January 6th. It
doesn't matter what they were there for.
Hold on, let me finish, because if you listen to me, there's going to be a point at the end of this. The people that were there on January 6th were there based on a lie. They tried to overthrow the outcome of an election based on a lie on the 2020 election. The overwhelming majority of those during Black Lives Matter protests were there for equality. Do you not understand that distinction?
I understand you making the point. Yes, I don't agree with you.
And why do you not agree with me on the distinction there?
Because what has happened, again, I'm trying to give you context, with Occupy Wall Street, with any riot, whether it's in Chicago on Main Street, robbing and what have you, that Black Lives Matter turned into a Christmas shopping event, and you had people breaking into stores, damaging buildings,
your point,
police cars.
And who's condoning that? Who's condoning the violence during Black Lives Matter protests, like you're condoning January 6th?
How many hundreds of cops were injured? How many cops were killed during all that? And how many of the
many cops were injured on January 6th?
Were brought to justice.
Yeah. What about it? What about it?
How many were brought to justice?
Thousands of
Hardly any.
people were arrested and charged with crimes during the Black Lives Matter protest. I have no idea what you're talking about. And by the way,
Kamala Harris got him out on bail the
no,
same
she
day.
did not get him out on bail. What Kamala, you see, again, your facts wrong. What Kamala Harris did is she wanted to give them the opportunity for fair legal representation.
Whenever I give you a fact, you just say it's wrong. Check
Okay,
your facts yourself.
because you're not listening to me. Kamala Harris did not represent. If you can listen for 30 seconds, because what you said is not factually
you're
accurate.
over talking me all the time. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Kamala Harris did not represent any of the people that were charged with crimes. What Kamala Harris did was she made it easier for those individuals that were arrested to be held with an attorney that could represent them. Do you not understand that distinction? She wanted to make sure that some of those people were represented properly in a court of law. She didn't post bail for them, and she didn't get them off on crimes. That's what you said, and you're wrong.
I didn't say she got them off on crimes. All I said,
you said
was
she posted bail for them. You're wrong.
Raised money for bail. And going back to the National Guard, Mayor Bowser of D.C. is the ultimate authority to call up the president and say, yes, I give you permission to bring the guard in.
You're correct on a point. You're correct on a point, but
Thank you, Michelle.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, but there is a but with this, because according to the Insurrection Act, there are 3 ways that the National Guard can be called up. First, at the request of the state, or of course the District of Columbia, as to what you're talking about. It can also, the president can also do it to enforce federal law.
Right.
That was done in 1987. President Reagan ordered the Defense Department to provide military units to help suppress violence at a federal prison in Atlanta. And it can also be done to protect civil rights. This provision authorizes the president to use military to suppress any insurrection, domestic violence, unlawful combination, or conspiracy if local law enforcement is unable to provide sufficient protection. It does not require the request or even the permission of the state. Now,
doesn't that fly in the face of posse comitatus?
What that would insinuate, now I don't know what that would also include the District of Columbia, but what that would insinuate is that Donald Trump would have been able to call in the National Guard that day.
But JD wants to blame Nancy Pelosi.
Without the request of Bowser.
Exactly. But JD wants to blame
Brian,
Nancy Pelosi.
I'll ask you a favor, Brian. Look up the testimony of Chief's son, I believe, Stephen's son.
What about what Michelle just said? It just contradicts what you just said. You're blaming Nancy Pelosi.
I think I get the point that he was. So JD was making a point that I think was important. We had seen for so many weeks and months at that point that people were kind of allowed to get away with committing crimes.
2 years, Michelle. 2 years.
Exactly. That I think even to this day,
who got away with crimes during Black Lives Matter protests, JD? Do you have some names for me?
I don't know. I don't know that any of us could name individual names, Brian. So that would be very difficult.
Hold on. Let me go back to JD. JD, are you aware that thousands of people were arrested and convicted for violent crimes during Black Lives Matter protests? Now, if you're going to make the claim that they got off and they were free, give me some names or some events of people that you believe committed crimes that were let off the hook, as you so to speak. Do you have any direct evidence of that?
How many jelly beans are in the jar?
Okay, so you don't have any direct evidence of that, so you want to make a wild claim with no evidence to back up your opinions. JD, I do appreciate you calling in. Thank you very much. Every single time you call in, you say things that are not factually accurate. The orange turd himself had the opportunity to call in the National Guard. He didn't do it that day, but yet you want to blame Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer because you are biased and far on the right. I'm going to switch topics now, and we're going to talk a little bit about Colin Kaepernick, but I get really frustrated with people where you actually, and I appreciate you looking that up, Michelle, the president had the opportunity to call in the National Guard, but JD wants to blame Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer because he listens to right-wing echo chamber radio every day and he doesn't know how to spell the word fact.
I also wanted to just mention this real quick because I know you're about to change topics on Kaepernick, because I just learned about this recently, and that January 6th was not the worst insurrection that's ever happened on the Capitol. The worst insurrection that happened on the Capitol happened back in 1954. 1954, believe it or not, when nationalists stormed the Capitol and they ended up shooting 5 members of Congress inside the House chamber. That did not happen in my lifetime. That did not happen in your lifetime. That probably didn't happen in Mark's lifetime. So no one in this room was there for it, but it did happen probably in our parents' lifetime, maybe the 50s, though. 1954, that was a very bad insurrection that happened in modern history, I guess.
Right. But again, when you bring up January 6th, people like JD, they will never say, gosh, that was a horrible day for this country. Those people
don't put words in JD's mouth.
He's never done that.
No,
He's never done that.
JD was saying it was a horrible thing. He did. No, he did.
He never said that.
No,
I've never heard him make a statement like that.
I'm going to defend him.
He immediately,
did say
won't, because I've never heard him say that. He didn't say that. And he wants to talk about Antifa, which, by the way, had nothing to do with January 6th. He wants to talk about Black Lives Matter protests and make it seem like there are Democrats out there that defend some of the violence, which, by the way, I've never heard any prominent Democrat defend any of the violence during the protest. Doesn't want to talk about January 6th, doesn't want to hold Trump accountable for anything. And again, wants to blame Nancy Pelosi for the reason why the National Guard wasn't called when Donald Trump, the president of the United States, had the authority to do it himself. But you'll never hear JD say that. All right, I want to switch topics now. And I want to talk a little bit about, and this is maybe where some Republicans might agree with me. I'm not a big Colin Kaepernick guy. I'd like to think that when Colin Kaepernick took a knee, his heart was in the right place. And he did it because he cares. I don't think Colin Kaepernick is an extremely intelligent person. You know, when he wears the Fidel Castro shirt or, pig socks depicting all police officers as pigs, that's wrong. And I didn't agree with that. And certainly Colin Kaepernick has profited off the field with, the BLM narrative that he has put forth. I don't think he's a horrible guy. Just don't think he's very intelligent. But I got to tell you, even I was shocked by some of the statements he made on a podcast yesterday about his family.
Yeah.
So Colin Kaepernick has accused his white adoptive parents of perpetuating racism in their household in an interview with CBS. He said, I know my parents love me, but there were still very problematic things that I went through. He went on to say, I think it was important to show that, no, this can happen in your home and how you move forward collectively while addressing the racism that's being perpetuated. He revealed that when he had cornrows as a child, his mother said, quote, your hair is not professional. You look like a little thug. The former quarterback also said those become spaces where it's like, how do I navigate the situation now? So 2 opinions that I have on this, and then we'll take some calls on it. I have no idea whether this happened in his household or not. I have no idea whether Colin Kaepernick is being honest or not. If in fact his mother made a statement like that, you look like a little thug. Obviously that's a racist statement and it's inappropriate. Don't know if that's true or not. But I'm surprised that Kaepernick came out and said this. Now, if it is true, then I agree with him. It's wrong. It's terrible. It shouldn't be said. People are going after Colin Kaepernick, calling him a racist and saying you're going after white people. I don't think that's necessarily fair as well. We don't know whether this is true or not. That's my issue.
No, we don't know if it's true or not. And also, I don't know that it necessarily means that his white adoptive parents are racist. And
that's a racist statement if it's true, though. If it's true.
But that doesn't necessarily, and I don't know, this is where I would like to bring Mark into the conversation if you're so willing, because I know you're a parent as well. As a parent, have you ever, sometimes my kids, they're little, right? And they'll put on clothes and I'll be like, oh, sometimes I'll just let it go and I'll be like, okay, I'm not going to say anything. And sometimes I'm like, oh God, you can't wear that outside. You know what I mean? Like you need to change. That is not okay.
But if somebody makes a statement, you look like a little thug.
No. But that's why I want to ask Mark.
Yeah.
So as a parent though, like parents aren't perfect and parents, we make mistakes. So I'm more lenient to say like, maybe she did say that, but I don't know that that necessarily makes her racist. It might just make her a mom who just said something wrong. So you as a parent and you as a person of color, I would like to take your opinion on this a little bit more. Do you think the comment was inappropriate or do you think it was just a mom comment that might've been blown out of proportion?
Well, like you said, I mean, we have children and we don't want them to have their own identity,
right?
And I think in this situation, because she was white and said it that way, if that was a black parent, it would have been okay. And again, my kids are mixed, so and I want them to have their own identity, and I watched and listened and read Colin Kaepernick's books and his seen some of his movies. I don't think she meant it in a racist way.
Yeah.
But when you watch television and you watch the news, sports, and you watch any of these things, when they have athletes that have cornrows, they are considered either from the hood or they look like thugs. But that's a stereotypical way that people of non-color look at that. But when you're Black and you grew up in the neighborhood, you don't consider it
that way at all.
Cornrow as a thug.
Because he wanted it to be like Allen Iverson, I believe, right?
That was his reason. But when you're from the neighborhood and where I grew up at, everybody, when it was like me going to the barbershop, I went to get a haircut, and right next to me, I had my friend who had longer hair than me. They got their hair. That was it's going to the salon,
right?
You get your hair done,
and you get to have the cool
extensions, and you get it.
All I'm saying is, though, some people would look at a white person saying that to a Black person. You don't look professional. You look like a little thug with racial connotations. Some
That's
people,
his mom.
right? Even if it's your mom, probably not an appropriate thing to say. I'm not also going to say she's a racist. I would not say that either. Let's take some phone calls on that. What do you think, Mark? 702-221-7283. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to line 3. Let's go to Xavier. Hi, Xavier. Thanks for calling in.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Sure.
I want to preface this by saying my parents have been married for 54 years. They raised 5 children, 4 boys and a girl of their own. And then when we got older, they took in 30-some foster children of different races.
Wow.
Okay. And one thing that my parents never did, and although the kids that came to us, they came from, I live in West Virginia. They came from families, white families, that their parents were locked up in prison for opioid abuse and things of that nature, molestation and what have you. And although they came from such homes and different circumstances, one thing that my parents never did was to make them feel bad about the culture that they came from. And I wanted to preface that because, I think that to start off with, if parents are if you want to adopt a child and that child is of a different race or culture from you, one of the things that you're going to have to accept is that child is going to, at some point, identify with another race. And they're going to want to obviously dress the part or whatever. I don't know. I read the article about what Colin Kaepernick said. I don't see anything wrong with what he said. He appreciates his parents for adopting him and all of that. I think where he's going is he's trying to make it clear for people who are going to be adopting children, and they're adopting children of other races. You cannot take a Mexican kid into your home and you don't want him to observe his culture.
Right.
And that would be the same for any other child.
I think that's very fair. Now, there are some people, though, I have to ask you, though, there are some people, not me, but there are some people that are saying Colin Kaepernick is making these statements because he wants to remain relevant. What would you say to that?
I don't think that's the case at all. I mean, if you really look at, it's in the culture right now. If you look at whether it's the adoption of kids, the argument is, on the right that they don't want 2 dads adopting a child or 2 mothers. If you look at the situation, if you kind of flip the coin and you look at what's going on over there with Meghan Markle marrying that prince, when you see some of the statements and comments and hear the things that people are saying, it's very clear.
I agree with you, but here's my question. Kaepernick is basically saying his mother was showing racism. He said you have to move forward collectively while addressing the racism that's being perpetuated. He's saying that his parents perpetuated racism on here. Do you think that might be taking it a little bit too far?
No, she did, and I think that's what needs to be said. I think that what he was saying was, hey, this happens in your own home, and although you may mean well, when you say something like that, okay, if you look at it from the perspective of a child, and this is a popular thing now. Most of the white stars are, they're raising black children. Okay, so at some point when that child decides that they want to be, if they just should decide that they want to get cornrows in their hair.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you make a statement like that as a parent, not that you meant it, to be harsh or to hurt the kid, but it's still a racist statement.
And it's different if a white person says it than if a black person as a parent says it, right?
Absolutely.
Can
If you look at the culture, hold on, let me make this point. If you look at the culture in this country today, and it has been this way from the beginning, black people have to change the way they walk. They have to change the way they talk. If they want to get a job, they have to change the way whether they would naturally dress. All of that and we have to straighten our hair if we're women, and if we're black males, you have to get your hair cut. I mean, it's and all of it is to mirror the white person or white America that you're going to get the job from.
Right.
May I ask you?
It puts us at a disadvantage. We have to have two educations where you guys just get one. We have to know how to speak your speak, and we have to know how to do it the way we do it. But it would be offensive or hurtful for a child to grow up and hear a parent, if, this is what, those are formative years. If the parent says, you look like a thug, I mean, it would bother him. And so when he says that, he's not coming at them.
I want Michelle to ask you a question. Then I have one more for you, sir. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, sorry. I just have a question. So I heard everything you said, and you made it so clear. My question is this. She said that comment that did have racist tones. That doesn't necessarily mean that she is a racist. Maybe she is, she isn't. I don't know her. But you make a comment like that. How do you recover from that? And how do you heal from that? Because maybe she didn't want it to sound as bad as she said. Maybe she did. I don't know. We don't know her intent. But how do you recover from that, I guess, since you were up with a family that worked with so many different children, so many foster children? When a mistake is made like that, how do you heal? How do you recover? How do you forgive? How do you apologize? What's the right way to go forward?
Okay, and I thank you for that question, because when I read the article about what he said, he appreciates his parents. He didn't call his mother a racist. He said what she said was racist. And I think that's where it needs to start. Yeah. It needs to start from there, so that you'll be, parents that are in that situation. And meanwhile, I have family members who are, my dad's brother married his high school teacher, and they have two sons who are mixed. My niece is mixed. I mean, it's just,
as is mine. Yep, my niece is mixed as well. Yep.
Right. So, but I think that how do you maybe fix the situation? I think that it starts with like what he's doing. I think that a lot of times people in America, and you have to excuse me, but white people in particular in America, I really don't think that white Americans really, really have ever wanted to take on this race issue. So that the first thing that something comes right, but I'm just saying. Yeah,
I agree with you as a whole. Can I ask you another question,
yes,
Xavier?
Sir.
Because it's I think you make a lot of great points, but I want to explain to you as a white person why I lost respect for Colin Kaepernick. Now I don't have a problem with him taking a knee. I am on the side of Black Lives Matter. I've been to Black Lives Matter protests. I'm on the side of it. I don't have a problem with athletes taking a knee. In fact, if teammates wanted me to take a knee, I would do it as well. Here's my problem with Colin Kaepernick. He knows he's on a world stage, right? He knows all the cameras are on him. What does he decide to do? He decides to promote Fidel Castro. He wears a Fidel Castro shirt, who is an evil, murderous dictator who's killed and murdered hundreds of thousands of his own people. He wears pig socks. Now, some officers are bad cops. There are some officers that are racist. But how do you expect respect from people when you wear socks depicting all police officers as pigs? Now, I don't think Colin Kaepernick is a very intelligent person. His heart might be in the right place, but you just don't do things like that if you want to be taken seriously. It shouldn't take away from the message, right, of racism and systemic racism. I get that. But I lost a lot of respect for Colin Kaepernick, because you can't do those things, especially when you're on the stage talking about discrimination.
Well, I mean, I'm not here to, and I appreciate what you said. I mean, people make bad decisions. They make bad choices. in life, and some things we may agree with, and some things we don't. I mean, but at the end of the day, if he makes a bad decision or makes a bad choice of what he wears or whatever, I think it kind of goes along back to maybe Melania Trump wearing that jacket that day. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
I do understand. I think Melania Trump has a history of doing nothing with her life, and she married Donald Trump. So that's when I lost credibility for her. I respect Kaepernick for what he's done in his career, right? He worked hard to become a professional football player and very gifted athlete. I also respect him talking to a soldier before he took a knee and getting advice from someone who served this country. And then that person told him, why don't you take a knee? He went to somebody first before doing it. I respect all of that stuff. And again, I'm also willing to say his heart is in the right place. There are a lot of people that think he did it only to capitalize financially. I'm not willing to make that claim. All I'm saying is when you're going to be one of the voices of systemic racism, and let's be honest, for a while, he was that symbol. You can't wear a shirt of like Adolf Hitler or Fidel Castro.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. And not only do I agree, I think that where the problem comes in for someone like him,
right?
When you first step into the spotlight, you know, especially if you want to be a leader on a specific issue.
Yeah.
You know, it can't be easy.
Sure.
You know, to find your footing and to figure out where you want to, you know, specifically where you want to, you know, take this to. You see what I mean?
You're right. And Xavier, I got to get to some other calls, but I hope you call back again, because when talking about these issues,
thank you for having me.
Of course, you sound very, very up to speed and educated, when probably more than I am when it comes to racial issues. And I appreciate you calling in and speaking about this, man. I really do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, Xavier. I really enjoyed talking to him. That was a great call. 702. I usually don't keep callers on for 10 minutes.
I know. I
didn't want to hang up on that guy.
I think because I really did wonder, was it a mom comment or was it a racist comment? And now I feel stupid though, because now after talking to Mark and talking to Xavier, now I feel stupid because I feel like I should never have thought it was a mom comment. But my initial
let's just call it for what it is. She might not be a racist. We don't know. It was a racially insensitive comment, and just leave it at that. Colin Kaepernick has a right to talk about these issues. I don't have a big problem with what Colin Kaepernick said. I mentioned the problems I have with him to Xavier, and Xavier actually agreed with me. Let's take another call. 702-221. Oh, Damon has left the building. Sorry, Damon was on hold for about 30 minutes there on that phone call. Sorry about that, but I think he made a lot of valid points.
Right. I didn't realize, because sometimes I just wonder as a parent. And so I appreciate Mark and Xavier bringing that in, because I just didn't know.
Yeah.
And now I feel bad.
Well, you shouldn't feel
that
bad.
I didn't just initially say, no, that was 100% racist.
Listen,
I gave her the benefit of the doubt that it was a mom comment.
Okay. Here's something where some black people might disagree with me on, right? And I hate to bring up the N word, because it's one of the worst words probably the worst word you can say to somebody who is black. But I have tried to make the argument, and again, I come from the perspective of somebody being white, right? I don't think the word should be used ever by black people or white people. Now, I understand when a black person says it to a black person, it's very, very different than if a white person uses that word. But what I try to say, and again, this is just from a white person's perspective, is when young white kids hear that word in rap music, some of those kids, if they don't have great parents, will think it's okay to use the word. And I understand rappers or whoever, they come from a different background. They grew up in a certain neighborhood. It's a different life than some people. And I totally understand that. But there are some black people that agree with me and some that disagree with me. I don't think the word should be used at all. Certainly shouldn't be used by somebody who's not black. And I understand it's a term of endearment, you know, when
in music, I think it gets really confusing too, because if you like the song and you want to sing it, but what's that kid supposed to do? I think the kid's in a quandary, right? They're like,
I'll give you an example. Your best buddy, Chris Wynn, right? We're having a conversation about this. And Chris Wynn admitted that sometimes he's listened to rap music in his car and he said the N-word because it's a lyric.
Right.
I'm not going to call Chris a racist for doing that, right? But it makes me uncomfortable to say that word, because I don't think the word should ever be used even if it's in a song.
Right.
I just don't do that. It doesn't make me a better person than somebody else. I just think it's one of the worst words you can use. And I think we have to be pragmatic about it. I don't think anybody should use the word. Now,
I worry about it too because I like a lot of rap, and it's
as do I.
It's in it everywhere, and
the
I'm
Chronic
like,
was the first album I ever bought. I was a big Dre fan growing up, and the Chronic and Snoop Dogg, and I got
that's our era.
Run DMC.
Yes.
I can go on and on and on with some of the great rap artists, Tupac, B.I.G. And what I grew up with. I'm not as big on hip hop now as I was back then.
Yeah.
These were distinct voices and poets. I would call them poets. And, but again, there are issues, and these are the types of conversations that I think people need to have, and they're afraid to have these conversations. And what I tell somebody, and I respect their opinion, because a black person calling another black person that word is like completely different than if a white person. I totally understand that. I'm not complicit. I understand what the word means and everything. But what I try to tell them, and I try to get them to understand, is you have a lot of young kids that are saying that word because they hear it in songs and stuff. A good parent would say, don't ever repeat that word. That's in rap music. That's in the culture there, but it's not appropriate for you. That's what a good parent would say. But there are bad parents out there, and kids learn or may learn in school it's okay to use that word. And then all of a sudden you're 17, 18, 19 years old, and you say that word, and then somebody knocks you out. Oh, what did I do wrong? Well, maybe the word shouldn't be used at all. I'm just saying that freedom of speech, get all that stuff, but maybe the word, I just throw that question out there. Would it be so bad if the word wasn't used at all? I think this country would be a better place. That's just my personal opinion on it. But then I have people from the other side that would say, I shouldn't say the other side, but they'll say, well, Brian, you're coming from a white perspective. No, I'm not. I'm coming from a logical perspective. I understand why you say that to somebody else. I get it. I do. And we should never say that word. But, I just think there are some things in society that don't help.
Let me interject real quick.
Real
sure. Brief.
Sure.
Like you guys are saying about rap music, and I mean, when you start comparing music, especially rap and those lyrics, remember those guys are trying to make money. Right?
Correct.
So they want you to like their music, and a lot of times it's two forms of the N-word, right? And I'm black, and like I said, I got mixed kids, but you got nigga and you got nigger.
Right.
When you listen to rap music, what you hear is my nigga, my nigga. You never hear them say that at the end.
Right.
And whether you're white or black, if I called you whatever term for a Caucasian or for a white, because people say, oh, devil.
Right.
Now you're offended by somebody saying that, whether they're black or white. So I think the way the terminology is kind of like a sentence, how you incorporate that word.
So I agree with you, and I've heard that before, but my opinion stays the same as far as this goes. There are plenty of young white kids that don't know that. Right. They don't have parents that teach them that.
Right, and they need to.
So my opinion stays the same, which is they think it's okay to use the word, whether it ends with an ER or an A.
But
they don't know what you just said, and that's the problem.
I've got a question, though, too. Remember when Snoop made... I can't remember what song it was, but it became for shizzle. I can't even say the rest of it because that's not allowed, right?
Yeah.
Like I would be crucified if I said the rest of it because and that's a made up word.
Yeah. And it
but
depends on whose opinion.
There's context. Who is it that said the word? I understand that.
But am I right about that? If I said that, and I think it's in the song, but Mark, if I said it, wouldn't it be wrong?
No, I don't think it'd be wrong.
Right? Are you
You're
sure?
Hearing it on a music, and if you're that's like me singing Carrie Underwood song, right? And it probably wouldn't sound right from coming out of my mouth,
right?
You guys
probably wouldn't sound right, but you're not wrong.
You guys just reminded me of a very funny scene in a movie. Okay, I don't know if you guys, it's the movie Office Space. The beginning of the movie, the white character in the movie is driving to work, and he's singing a rap song with the N-word in it. And then he sees a black guy walking by selling flowers on the street or something. And he rolls up his window and then he stops singing the song. It's a funny moment, though, because that happens in real life, right?
Yeah, no, it is.
I just don't use the word at all.
No. I'm not going to either. It's just, right. I love Snoop. I love Snoop. Like I know he's here in Vegas all the time. Like if I could meet him, it'd be like a dream come true. And he would probably hate me, right? He'd be like, you're everything I hate in this world, Michelle. But
he won't like your politics.
I'm so scared. Like I don't even think I can say for shizzle. Like I feel like, oh, that would be like bad.
It's just
well, for shizzle, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
I've said that before.
We've kind of been American trained, right? Not to say that word because it's not a nice word. But when you hear
Yeah.
thousands of people saying it in music, and you hear people saying it.
I've always wanted to know, so thank you for telling me.
Thank you, Mark. Let's try to squeeze in a few quick phone calls.
Do
we have
time?
We got like
no.
Do we have time?
We're at 53. We're pushing.
Can
we got a minute.
Can I push the limits here?
No.
Come on, we got to wrap it up.
For those of you that are trying to call in now, maybe I'll have this conversation with Chris Wynn, like myself, who is also very white, and we can have this conversation maybe a little bit on Monday. I do have a feeling we're going to talk a lot of sports, but now that I have a minute, Michelle, I do want to mention the UNLV men's basketball game was phenomenal yesterday. What a comeback by UNLV, coming short of winning in overtime, but you have to give them credit at least for the fight that they had, and Kevin Kruger deserves one more year to see what he can do. So I think he's solidified that. They a great game against Boise State. Congratulations to the UNLV women. As I said yesterday, they won the Mountain West Conference title. They're off to the NCAA tournament. Congratulations to my good friend Todd Simon at Southern Utah. They won their quarterfinal game yesterday in the WAC. They're playing in the semifinals tonight. I am heading out, Mark. Your USC team lost yesterday to Bobby Hurley. I am heading out to the Pac-12 tonight, man, to catch the semifinals of the Pac-12. We also have in Vegas the semifinals of the Mountain West Conference tonight. We got the semifinals of the WAC tonight. We got the semifinals of the Big West tonight. So I'm going to have to pick and choose the games I'm going to, but I chose the Pac-12 today because I think you've got 4 quality basketball teams that can make a Sweet 16 or maybe even go further. It's been a lively show. I'm sorry that you were kicked off of TikTok. Is that the first time that's ever happened to you?
Yeah.
Of course, leave it to me and my show and some of my callers for calling in to get you kicked off of TikTok for a little bit. But for those of you that are calling in, it seems like they all want to call in at the end of my show. It's very interesting. But here's what we do, ladies and gentlemen. If you love my show, subscribe to my YouTube page, PTL Vegas. Right now, it's free. Subscribe to my PTL Vegas YouTube page, and you can see everything you want on there. All my shows broadcast live on there, so if there's a glitch here, you could always go there. PTL Vegas on YouTube. Michelle, if you want to give out some of your information so people can follow you, go for it.
Michelle Mortensen on TV and TikTok, and Michelle M. Mortensen on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, so check out Michelle. And no, Michelle is not a hateful person for anybody that reported her. She got into it with a few callers today, which, by the way, I got to be honest with you, I pleasantly enjoyed that. That was fun. Yeah, I wasn't calling somebody names today for once. I mean, that's actually, I didn't even call JD a name to call her on today. I didn't call him a name either. That's a first for me, by the way. I was very polite today. Not very unlike me. I'll try to do better.
Evidently, people don't like it when I say mansplain.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
I thought you said manscaping, which is something else I don't know anything about, but that's another story for another show, and I don't want to make Michelle vomit. Anyway, so Michelle, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. Thanks to Mark, and appreciate some really good calls today, actually, even the ones that I disagreed with. So I appreciate all of you being a part of the show. Follow me on YouTube, PTL Vegas. We will see you on Monday, same time, same place.